Welcome, Matt.
Thank
Glad
you so
to have
much.
you here.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Want to just introduce yourself real quick?
Yeah, for sure. My name is Matt, Matthew Babb, and I am a current PhD student at Georgia State University. And I research animal behavior, and I've had a lot of experience with animal research, but also working with animals in captivity at an aquarium setting and a zoo setting. So I have a lot of experience with that, and I'm happy to be here and sort of talk about that stuff and answer any questions you or the viewers might have. So.
All right, wonderful. So we're going to start off with a question you probably haven't gotten before.
Okay.
What is your favorite animal?
Okay. I have gotten that question before.
Okay.
A pretty common one. Right now in my program, we have we work specifically with tufted capuchin monkeys, which are a neotropical primate species found in South America. And so those guys do have a special place in my heart. I work with them several days a week. We have our own population that is housed at Georgia State, and they live in social groups, ecologically relevant social groups. So all the groups have a dominant male.
So they're like at Georgia State, like
so
in Atlanta, or
another place.
Yeah.
I won't necessarily disclose what it is.
Makes sense.
But we do have our own facility, and we have around 30 capuchin monkeys.
Wow.
They have, like I said, they all live in ecologically relevant social groups.
Yeah.
So they have indoor and outdoor access where they can interact with one another as they normally would in the wild. Our groups all have a dominant male, which is also classic or typical of what they would have in the wild, followed by a lot of females.
Yeah.
So we research lots of things from cognition to like social behavior.
Yeah.
And one thing too that we like to pride ourselves in, specifically at Georgia State, is that we do all non-invasive research. So nothing that we do there, no poking and prodding, and also our research is voluntary.
Yeah.
Which is also interesting.
Interesting.
We can talk more about that later. But,
Okay.
What I mean by that is that the animals can choose to participate, and if they choose not to participate, we just won't test with them.
So how would an animal choose not to participate?
So we give them the opportunity to separate themselves into an enclosure where they would test. And if they decide not to, then we just close the door after 30 minutes and move on, and they get to go about their day and we go about our day. So.
Dang.
Yeah. But getting back to the question, so I have a special place in my heart, and that's just sort of a plug for what I do and a little bit of an intro.
Yeah.
I have a special place in my heart for tufted capuchin monkeys, but I also will say that if I had to choose something that I don't work with, beluga whales might be one of my favorite ones. Yeah.
Interesting.
And I did work with them at the aquarium, and so they also have a special place in my heart, but they're such a unique animal. And they're so brilliant, but they're so not human. They're so different from humans, which I think makes them so interesting, but yet they're still so brilliant and have this complex social behavior and complex lives and very, very smart animals. And so to watch them behave, to watch them learn is very intriguing. And then to also look at them and be like, you are so far from being human.
Yeah.
You know?
So how do beluga whales communicate? Because I know dolphins use something similar to sonar, right?
Yeah. So belugas use a similar methodology. So they can, like dolphins, echolocate.
Okay.
So they make a lot of sounds underwater, a lot of stuff we can't even hear.
Yeah.
They also make a lot of noises that you can hear. So if you ever get the opportunity to hear a beluga whale, they make some of the funniest, most creative noises you'll ever hear.
Yeah.
But yeah, they communicate that way. As well as potentially, and there's not really been research on this, but they, like many other animals, and like humans, probably communicate through gestures, or not necessarily gestures, but like body language, and they use visual senses as well to see each other and communicate that way.
Yeah, so you were saying they're very intelligent. How is intelligence scaled among animals? Like, what is it about beluga whales that leads us to believe they're either more or less intelligent than other animals?
So it's a great question, and it's one that a lot of people have.
Yeah.
But I always go back to the quote when people ask this, because to me, intelligence can be measured in a number of different ways.
Yeah.
And so, people broadly use the term intelligence, and that could mean a number of different things, like, are you smart at math? Are you smart at writing? Do you have emotional intelligence, right? And even within humans, right, you have people who can't do math to save their life. but then, they can read a room or read someone's emotions and feelings like nobody else.
Oh, yeah.
And so just like within humans, animals too, both across species and within their own species, vary greatly from context to context. And so a couple of things that we measure that, maybe you could include in the word intelligence, although I probably wouldn't even use that word to be honest, are things like cognitive flexibility. And so what that is how good are you at thinking outside the box about like getting a problem that can't be solved with your current means, and how good are you at flexibly modifying your perspective on that problem so that you come at it from a different angle. Okay. So that would be like cognitive flexibility, and that'd be one way that you could measure that. And
so sort of like reasoning in situations they wouldn't encounter in their natural environment.
Exactly.
Okay.
Or like you said, you give an animal a problem that's not solved by their typical means.
Yeah.
How is an animal able to sort of take a different perspective on the problem and change how they're going about it? So that would be cognitive flexibility. You could also look at things like inhibitory control, which is, I'm sure a lot of people have heard of the classic marshmallow test. You can run a classic marshmallow test on animals too.
Okay. Can you explain the marshmallow test real quick?
So the marshmallow test is very common in children's psychology research. But essentially you give, you can do it a lot of different ways, but you give a child a marshmallow and you say, don't eat this, I'll be back. You don't tell them usually how long you'll eat. I'll be back. If you don't eat it before I get back, I'll give you another marshmallow.
Yeah.
And so that's sort of this test of can a child wait for a better reward.
Yeah.
So the idea is that if you have good inhibitory control, it's a hard word to say. If you have good inhibitory control, you would be able to stop the prepotent response to eat the marshmallow immediately because you're waiting for a better reward. And so
animals display this?
Some of them.
Okay.
I will say that is one area that a lot of animals do struggle with.
Yeah.
But even within animals, you have a lot of variation. So using our Capuchin monkeys as an example, we actually ran a study similar to this. It wasn't exactly the marshmallow test, but essentially what it was is a disc that spun around, and after a certain amount of time, it would drop an item down.
Yeah.
And then at any point, the Capuchin could cash out and say, okay, I'm done. I've waited long enough. I'm collecting what I've collected and moving on. And we had some Capuchins that would wait for one.
Yeah.
Well, I think it ended up being Cheerios. I think is what we were using. Waited for one Cheerio and was like, nope, that's enough. I'm cashing out right now. And then we had one Capuchin, for example, that waited for 30. So there could be a lot of which is a long time.
That's actually crazy. I wouldn't expect a monkey to wait.
They normally don't.
That was a very unique one.
But so you can test those sorts of things. That's just two examples. But even things like we were talking about how emotional intelligence might be one. Right? And maybe one species that's very social, that may be very distantly related to humans in terms of like an evolutionary scale. But they live in a complex social environment. Maybe they have really good emotional intelligence. Or the ability to sort of sense emotions or pick up on cues in social situations than, say, an animal that is more solitary, that although maybe more complex in terms of a way a human might describe it, right? But maybe not have those same sort of abilities.
Yeah.
Just because of the way that their ecology is.
Yeah, that makes sense, because I feel like a lot of the ways we kind of scale and level animal intelligence is just based on how closely we feel like they relate to humans.
Yes.
Like a lot of people think their dog is the most intelligent animal on the planet simply because their dog can understand their emotions.
Probably one of the stupidest animals on the planet.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm glad you actually brought up the dog stuff too, because it's really interesting when you look at dogs. Dogs have evolved with us for hundreds of years. And so when I test a dog looks brilliant. It looks like it's got everything. But then you start to realize dogs aren't necessarily brilliant, but what they're brilliant at is picking up on human cues and doing what humans like.
Yeah.
Whereas like, a chimpanzee, not going to be the case.
Yeah,
right? Or,
not at all.
Even like a jaguar, right? Like a jaguar might be better at like cognitive flexibility, better at inhibitory control than a dog.
Yeah.
But we think a dog's smarter because it looks more smart.
Yeah.
By what a human.
Yeah.
Sees. So,
exactly, and understands our cues and can read our facial expressions.
Yeah.
And
which to us.
make eye contact. Yeah. In a non-aggressive way.
Even from, you know, I don't know this literature that well, but you know, a lot of dogs inherently can understand human pointing, right? And we, you know, that looks like, oh my gosh, dogs can understand gestures, but then you're like, but they've also evolved. People.
Yeah, can most animals not understand pointing? Like, do monkeys or anything? Does pointing mean anything to them?
There have been studies on stuff like that, and there are certainly animals that can be trained to do that.
Yeah.
Dogs probably more inherently than others, simply because
because they've been with us for so long. Yeah.
But there are certainly other animals that you can train to understand that when I point somewhere that you're meaning to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
It just requires training, something that might not come naturally.
Yeah.
I mean, even dogs too, they can track our vision. So a lot of times when you do studies with dogs, you need to put a visor on, like a face shield that can't see your eyes, because you could accidentally cue the animal.
Really?
So those are just examples, right?
Yeah.
Things that we can't even realize that an animal's picking up on, but they do. So.
Yeah, because even like squids and other animals like that, we're talking about. What was the first thing you said you used to measure? You said cognitive
flexibility.
Flexibility, yeah. Because I've seen videos of, I don't know if it was a squid or octopus, like solving a puzzle.
Yeah,
for the first time.
There's lots of cephalopod research. And they do look at octopi and squids, and they can solve things. I'm not versed in that research at all, but despite them being so distantly related to humans, I mean, they are far away in terms of like phylogeny, but they still are able to sort of solve those things that, you know, we wouldn't even think about. Yeah. And so that another example of them showing certain cognitive abilities that all sort of sum to what we as humans call intelligence. But for animals, it's just so different.
Yeah. So that kind of brings me to a point, kind of the reason why I reached out to you in the first place. Yeah. I was on Instagram the other day and I saw the Georgia Aquarium is offering a resident pass. Yep. So you pay $50 and you get free access scheduled for the rest of the year till the end of 2023. Yep. And then I started looking around online and I was looking into aquarium stuff and I saw there's a lot of backlash against aquariums, that kind of stuff. And I started thinking about arguments I've heard in the past, like, for example, people that are pescatarian, right? Mm-hmm. And they somehow justify eating fish over other things because they view fish as less intelligent, blah, 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 because they feel
maybe
things.
Don't feel pain as much.
Don't feel pain, at least in the same way as us. Which kind of, you talking about the ways we just operate and feel things differently than animals. Kind of got me thinking about that. But back to the aquarium thing. How do you feel about aquariums, zoos, and I guess the ethics of that? Because I'm not really well educated on any of that stuff. Like, when it comes to ethics of zoos, I feel like the majority of conversation I've had came after Tiger King. Yep. And that was when everyone was really, or blackfish and stuff like that. And so, have you had any experience with that kind of stuff, or you know anything about?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll get to that in a second.
Okay.
I do want to go back to one thing you said, which is this sort of experience, or like, you know, maybe fish experience pain different, or something like that. Something that I think that is important for people to hear is that animals experience the world in such a different way from humans and that is probably one of the most important things to take away from like animal research and just animals and just studying animals in general. Yeah. And what it's called an animal's Umwelt. It's like It's like I think it's a German word. Yeah. But basically, what Umwelt is all the sensory experiences that an animal is perceiving the world through, and so when we start talking about like fish and like experiencing pain and stuff, I just think it's important to like, one important aspect of things that we do is like talking about that stuff is that like animals experience the world in such a different way from humans. Yeah. That, like, it's almost not even comparable. It's like it's literally the apples to oranges thing. Yeah. And you know, and I'll use the dogs for example again, right? Dogs use olfaction all the time. Yeah. And I can't even begin to understand how a dog sees, quote unquote, sees the world. Yeah. Because we're such visual creatures, and so I do think that that's an important factor to keep in mind when we talk about all these topics with animals is to understand that like animals see the world in such a different way, seeing in quotes obviously because some animals can't see it all.
Yeah,
right? Like a mole,
which is true.
Probably sees the world very differently.
Yeah,
but is still able to do these amazing complex things. So yeah, but getting back to the animals in captivity or animals in human care, whether that's in a zoo or an aquarium or even in a research setting.
Yeah.
I've definitely had my fair share of experience with that. I, at one point, interned at the Georgia Aquarium, so I'm very familiar with this pass and also very familiar with the way that industry is, and then also the way that people perceive it and have these conversations. And then also, like I said, we do have animals in captivity currently, right? We have 30 Capuchin monkeys, and they live... I'll say this to anybody. They live probably a better life than I do.
Yeah.
The food they get is better than I get at the grocery store. So they live a good life, and they don't have to worry about getting eaten. So but yeah, so there's a lot of different perspectives on animals in captivity, and I think that the problem is there are a lot of bad facilities, and those bad facilities unfortunately make the facilities that do a good job look worse. Okay.
What would be a marker of a bad facility?
So it's definitely not a black and white thing.
Yeah, okay.
But you think about Tiger King, right? So I look at Tiger King from an objective perspective as like someone who's like worked in that field, and it doesn't seem like the best facility. The fact that people are getting in with the animals, one, that's probably not safe.
Yeah, not at all. As we saw in the show.
In Tiger King. I think that the most important thing, and this is an opinion, so and there's definitely not black or white with this, but I think that providing enough space, enough ecologically relevant and appropriate opportunities for those animals that are in captivity, so that their lives are as similar to the wild as possible, I think is what you want to aim for. Now, obviously, there are restrictions, and I can't have an animal that lives in the ocean in an enclosure the size of the ocean, because then it would just be the ocean. Yeah. But zoos and aquariums, especially those that are accredited by what's called the American Zoological Association, I think that might be right. The acronym is AZA. Yeah. And it is a very rigorous accreditation process. And so, if a facility is accredited by AZA, that means that they meet certain standards of animal welfare and animal care that this organization that has scientists, outside, like people from a lot of different fields, all sorts of stuff like that, they come in and they have this rigorous accreditation process. So if a facility is accredited by the AZA, that's sort of my benchmark, right? That you can say this is probably a pretty good facility. Yeah. And there are then additional certifications and stuff like that can go then above and beyond. And for sanctuaries, which sanctuaries are a little bit different than zoos, but they have something called, I do not remember the name, but it's a GFAS certification. It's just a very similar thing. Okay. And so you really want to look at those, because these outside organizations, they are accrediting these places because they are deeming them at least as best as they can to be an appropriate and an ethical facility. Okay. So that's sort of what you want to look for. Visiting a non-AZA certified facility is where you'll start to see things like Tiger King, where it's maybe not the best zoo, or so that would be sort of a long way to answer. But I mean, I can answer specifics too.
So you mentioned zoos and sanctuaries are different. Yeah. How are they different?
Oh, there is a definition. And I do not have it off the top of my head. I think it has something to do with, and I could be very wrong about this, I think it has something to do with maintaining the animals and getting profit from the animals versus maintaining animals that would have needed to be like sanctuaries are animals that would have been that were in bad situations and are being rehabilitated to and live in a so-called more natural life than like zoos where the focus is a lot more on people coming.
Yeah, tourism and spreading awareness and
exactly.
sort of outreach. Okay.
Very interesting that you actually asked this, and I'm surprised I don't have the definition off the top of my head.
Yeah.
But while I was at the University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill, which is where I did my undergrad, I actually did a study comparing big cat behavior between a sanctuary and a zoo.
Really?
I was convinced that a sanctuary would be better because there was less people.
Yeah.
It was more animal focused on the surface. Actually, it ended up not being a very significant study at all, but it turned out that the zoo animal behavior was actually better than the sanctuary one. Yeah, and that's because zoos get more funding.
So did they have zoos and sanctuaries you were visiting while you were there that had big cats?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
what classifies a big cat? Like,
so
are mountain lions big cats? I was having an argument with a friend about that the other day.
Mountain lions are not considered big cats.
Okay.
It's oh goodness, I think it has to do with the noises they can make, and it has to do with the bone they have. So even though they can be large, so a mountain lion, a puma, or cougar, they're all the same animal. Or a Florida panther, some people call them.
Yeah.
I don't think they're even in Florida anymore. They're actually considered not big cats because they don't have the they either do or don't have this bone in their throat that can make them purr or something like that. So I think that's like part of the distinction.
So it's not entirely a size thing.
It's not a size thing at all. Yeah, no. But,
so is a cheetah a big cat?
A cheetah would be a big cat.
Okay, because I've seen cheetahs up close and they're like this big.
Yeah. I mean, even even I think like an ocelot, which is a very, very small, about the size, a little bit larger than a house cat, is considered a big cat potentially.
Okay.
Don't quote me on that, but
we'll believe it.
I'm not a cat expert, so
but
I know there's a distinction between big cats and not big cats, and it has something to do with the bone that they have in their throat and the noises they're able to make, not actually based on the size. But I'll tell you, I'd much rather face like an ocelot in the wild than like a mountain lion.
Oh yeah, 100%. So what kind of things are you looking at when you're studying like the quality of the life of the animals in like a sanctuary versus a zoo? Like what metrics are you looking at?
So a couple things you can look at. One that has been common are what are known as stereotypies.
Okay.
Or stereotypic behavior. These are behaviors that are abnormal and usually repetitive. So humans do stereotypies all the time. I would consider like biting your fingernails to be a stereotypy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not really a normal thing that we should be doing.
Yeah.
People will do it repetitively, especially when they're in stressful situations.
Okay. Yeah.
Right? And so one way that you can measure maybe an animal's well-being is through stereotypies. So if an animal is producing a lot of stereotypies, like pacing is a very common stereotypy, right? It's a repetitive thing. Some people argue it's not really a stereotypy because they would be walking around if they were in the wild. They just can't walk around because they're
in more confined space. Yeah.
So that's one way that you could look at it. But there's the other side of that too, which is some animals develop stereotypies from their past and then continue to have them even though their lives are great.
Yeah.
Humans, once again, do the exact same thing, right? Like, some people will use the fingernail biting, right? Like, maybe you went through a very stressful part of your life.
Yeah.
You developed this habit of fingernail biting or, maybe pulling your hair out or something like that. And then even years later, once your life is less stressful or that event has passed, you continue to do those stereotypes, right? And so that doesn't necessarily mean that at the current time you're bad. So there's sort of two sides to that with regards to like stereotypic behavior. So once again, not a black and white issue, but one way you could definitely measure it. Another one I think is just, like I said earlier, is relating how their lives are compared to how their lives would be in the wild.
Okay.
Like, and how similar they can be. And so using our capuchins once again as an example, like, they live in social groups that they would naturally have in the wild. They have a dominant male, and then they have the rest are females, and all those females are usually from the same matrilineal line as they would be in the wild. So, grandmas, moms, and daughters, aunts and cousins all stay in the same group, and that's the same for us, right? And then they also have outdoor enclosures where they can climb things. Climb trees, climb obstacles, and are fed in a way that's more natural where they have to go foraging and stuff like that. Whereas, not all facilities are like that.
Yeah.
There are facilities that individually house an animal that should be in a group, right? So that would be one thing, right? Is like, do they normally have a social group?
Yeah, like if you have a wolf alone in a cage.
Exactly. Having a wolf
nowhere
alone
close
would be nowhere close to how they live in the wild.
Okay.
Right, but then maybe having like a snow leopard alone, which is a pretty solitary species, that would be probably more typical. You probably wouldn't want to put a snow leopard in with 10 of their snow leopards.
Yeah.
You know, so that's just one sort of micro example. But you want to try and do that and try and mimic their natural environment as best as possible. Obviously, you have restrictions, of course, but that would be sort of the other benchmark. So looking at accreditation, looking at their behavior and seeing if they are displaying abnormal behavior, with the caveat that could be the result of previous trauma or previous housing, and then also seeing how similar their environment is in captivity compared to what it would be in the wild.
Okay.
Those are sort of the three things that I would say are good benchmarks to understanding if a facility is a good facility or not. And ultimately, it's not black and white. And I think people do need to understand that everyone can have their own opinion on this. And I can feel one way about one facility and another way about another facility, and maybe you have a different opinion about that.
Yeah.
I think it's all about drawing your own line in the sand of what you think is right and not right with animals.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So, bottom line, should I get the resident pass for the Georgia Aquarium?
I'm wearing a Georgia Aquarium shirt right now.
Okay.
And I am a big proponent of the Georgia Aquarium.
Yeah.
I think that the things that they do there are very, very important. And they do treat their animals really, really well.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's a deal. I think it's a deal. I think the Georgia Aquarium is an amazing place. And I just can't say enough amazing things about it. Obviously, I am biased.
You
know, are there things that they could do better? Certainly. I would say that about any facility. And I think that anybody who works there would agree that there's always room for improvement. To say that there's no way that a place can improve.
To say that this aquarium can't get any closer to the ocean.
Exactly. Yeah. But they do a really good job. And specifically with the places that I've worked with, the belugas and the seals and the mammal and bird team, they do a really good job with focusing on their animals. And here's the other thing too. I think a lot of people lose this. When you see things like Blackfish and Tiger King and these dramatized documentaries about animals in captivity, you also have to remember that that's one side of one perspective, right?
Yeah.
Just like any argument, if I'm only hearing one side, you won't ever get the full picture. There's always three sides to the story, and so, you know, I remember Blackfish had just come out when I was at the aquarium, or had come out a couple months or a year or so earlier, and that was a big deal. And I don't know if you've seen it, but it was pretty.
I've heard about it. I have not seen it.
Yeah, it's pretty eye-opening with regards to how marine mammals are treated, specifically at SeaWorld. That was the thing. But, you know, that's only one side of the argument, and what I say to people who look at that stuff is that the people working with these animals are not horrible people. If you think that the people who are working at zoos and aquariums, which, by the way, zoo and aquarium staff are, like teachers, very, very underpaid for what they do.
Really?
Very underpaid. There's not a lot of money. So to think that these people who are working with these animals every single day, coming in for, like, not a lot of money, to say that they have ill intent towards these animals is a little bit short-sighted to me.
I mean, it makes sense. Like, if they're not there for the money, if they're choosing to do that over something else that could pay more.
Exactly.
There has to be a reason.
Yeah, and I can assure you they're not there for the money.
Yeah, okay.
And I know
good to know.
People, so I just think that it's important that, you know, if you do watch those documentaries, things like Blackfish, like I encourage people to watch that stuff, but I also encourage people to also look at the other perspective, which hopefully I'm providing a little bit of that.
Yeah, 100%.
Because it's only when you see both sides of that you can begin to form your own opinion. You know, if I just watch one documentary that's an hour long and all of a sudden I'm an expert from my couch on animals in captivity, you know.
Yeah, you don't have much credibility in what you're saying.
A lot of people will make that claim, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, oh my gosh, I watched Blackfish and I'm never going to an aquarium again.
And that's what I see most, because the majority of people are not very educated on it. Mm-hmm. And so when a big production like that comes out, the majority of people will believe it.
And everyone has Netflix.
Yeah, right? Exactly.
Yeah. But, you know, And I won't get into too much details about that, but it's still a good documentary to watch, and it's certainly a great perspective to take. But I'd also encourage people, if you're going to watch that, to then also maybe sit down with somebody who is a keeper at a zoo or a trainer at an aquarium and pick their brain for an hour. Right? And to see both sides of it, because that side doesn't get told as much as the side of the sad animals that are dying in captivity. And so, but it's certainly definitely something that I'm glad happens, because there are a lot of facilities out there that maybe shouldn't be facilities because they are mistreating their animals. I think about like pop-up zoos or roadside zoos. Or zoos where, they take cubs out of, a lot of stuff in Tiger King, right? They take a cub away from their mom who is nursing, and you put it in 15 strangers' hands. That's not a great thing for a cub,
probably
right? So
not great.
Things like that. So
and
once again, that goes back to their natural environment. They shouldn't be held by 15 humans.
No, probably not. So you're working with Capuchin Monkeys. This is something I've realized. I feel like in every movie I see where there's a monkey, it's a capuchin. Is there anything particular about Capuchin Monkeys that would make them either more available or more efficient or effective in that kind of stuff?
So Capuchin Monkeys are probably one of the definitely a more studied primate, and that's for a couple reasons. One, they're much smaller than chimpanzees or apes, which makes them more affordable to feed because they don't eat as much.
Makes sense.
You also don't need as large of an enclosure, for example, as you would for chimpanzee, or the level of security. Chimpanzee, if anyone can see a chimpanzee and a capuchin, a chimpanzee is way more dangerous.
I don't want to be anywhere near a chimpanzee.
Exactly. So, but there's a couple other reasons too. So capuchins are a neotropical primate, like I said. So they are a little bit more distantly related from humans than, say, chimpanzees or great apes. And so they're considered like a monkey, right? And they have that more distant relation in terms of phylogeny, but they have shown evidence of a lot of cognitive abilities that chimpanzees, that humans show as well, obviously albeit to a lesser extent, right? They're not going to be able to do all like multiplication and stuff like that, but they have shown inhibitory control. They've shown great cognitive flexibility. Some other things too, they have a pretty big brain compared to their size, which some people use as a measure of
like intelligence or complexity,
right? Although there's also the other side of that, where people say it doesn't mean anything. They also are very social, so you can research a lot of things about like social cognition with them. They also have great dexterity, which you don't actually think about. Because we think of all monkeys are very dexterous.
Like they have thumbs. They should be able to.
They have a lot of dexterity, which allows them to interact with things more. And they also use tools, so they're used to like picking things up.
Really, like they use tools. What do you mean by use tool? Like obviously it's like sticks and stuff, but like what would they use those for?
So the specifically for capuchins, what they use tools. So they use hammer and anvil. So they'll take a rock that's a good rock. And they'll find a rock that's a good anvil on the ground. And they'll smash nuts and stuff on it. So that would be tool use. I study tool use, and there's a whole debate about what tool use is, but capuchins do use tools in the wild in that regard. And so that's usually why they end up being in movies. They're easier to maintain. But they
easy to transport.
They're very social species, and like I said, not to use the intelligence thing, but they are a pretty complex animal with a lot of that have shown evidence of a lot of cognitive abilities. And maybe that's because they're researched more.
So we sort of already have a good base understanding of how to interact with them and how to motivate them and stuff. Because it really is all about motivation at the end of the day, right? When it comes to like animals and work and movies and stuff like that. Which kind of brings me to the next thing. One other thing I was wondering about. So when it comes to like animals working, I've heard a lot about search and rescue dogs. And I've done, I wouldn't say research, but I've read a lot of articles and listened to podcasts about them. And we recently had that earthquake in Turkey and Syria. And I've been seeing a lot of videos of a lot of search and rescue teams going over there, search and rescue dogs. And I remember hearing that even in other disasters like 9/11, when they had search and rescue dogs there, the dogs would get disappointed a lot of the times because they kept finding dead bodies And I know the dogs, I don't know if they were rewarded when they found people who hadn't passed away or people who are simply injured, but they were getting really sad, or the dogs were getting unmotivated, so they'd have to start hiding firefighters in the rubble.
Yeah, I've heard about that.
To kind of motivate the dogs. It kind of got me to wondering, like, dogs like search and rescue dogs that are doing a lot of good things for people. And for example, these dogs in particular that were actually emotionally affected by whether or not they found either someone who had passed away or someone who was simply hurt.
Yeah.
For dogs in particular, and I guess animals as a whole, are they doing the work because they genuinely want to or have some sort of emotional connection to people, or are they simply doing it because they're motivated by a treat? Essentially, like, can animals be altruistic? Is it all just stimulus reward, or is there an actual like emotional connection between the animals and the people? You know.
So this is something that comes up pretty frequently when talking about like animal research. Something that comes up pretty frequently when talking about animal research, and to give you the short answer, I don't know.
And
because a lot of times you could make the argument that they are simply responding to their previous reinforcement training.
Okay.
They actually don't even care, or potentially don't even know conceptually that they're looking for alive people.
Yeah.
That you could say that, they know that they are rewarded more and rewarded better when they find someone alive. And so by finding people that don't match their concept of alive, it's disappointing because now they realize they're going to not get as good of a reward. That is one perspective.
It's one side.
Yes. And it's probably still sticks around, and this is my opinion, it sticks around most likely because it's really hard to prove the other perspective.
Yeah.
Because I can almost always come back to the very simple explanation, which is these dogs are rewarded, this animal is rewarded, therefore they are simply responding to their previous positive reinforcement of this behavior, and then it's simply a stimulus response, cue response sort of behavior. Whereas the other perspective is just that, whereas like the dogs have an understanding that they're looking for people that are alive, and that they find it rewarding to find alive people and aversive to find dead people because they have a connection with people and they understand that.
Yeah.
The problem is, and I'll say I probably lie more on that perspective.
Yeah.
In a lot of cases, if we're talking about an insect, probably not. Probably more closer to this, but when we're talking about mammals, it seems more likely that they do have an understanding of it.
Okay.
And the problem is, though, I can't ask the dog.
Yeah.
I can't talk to the dog. And
which
I can't
makes
talk
sense.
to any other animal.
Yeah.
Right? And so it makes it really hard for me to prove that.
Yeah.
Right? Because I can always go back into this perspective. Like, someone can always come at me with this perspective and say, well, it could just be a stimulus response thing, right? Like, I gave you a very clear explanation for what it could be. And so you can always go back to that. And that goes beyond just the dogs, right? That can be done with any sort of experiment, any sort of animal. And that's why we as animal researchers have to do a good job of interpreting our results.
Yeah.
But also not overselling them too.
Yeah, because you're observing behaviors, and you can observe and report on behaviors, but the motive behind the behavior is obviously, like you were saying, you could have some people that will almost anthropomorphize the animal and assume humans do that behavior for this reason, therefore the animal must be doing it for the same reason, but it doesn't really translate one-to-one like that.
Yeah. And I'm glad you brought the term anthropomorphism, which is just applying basically human concepts, human terms, or human feelings to animals, is a very, I will say, controversial thing in animal research because, like you said, we can't actually show that the dogs are seeing it in this way, or that the capuchins are seeing it the same way we are, or heck, even the sea turtle that you're researching, which is very, very different than humans, seeing it the same way we are. But also at the same time, I would also make the argument, and I will not be the first one to make this argument, is that anthropomorphism isn't a horrible thing either.
Okay.
Because in some cases.
Yeah.
Because it sometimes might be more parsimonious, which I mean basically just, it's more simple. It's a simple explanation to say that the animal is feeling those things, or the animal does perceive it that way, because humans do, right? I think that it makes more sense to say that a chimpanzee is feeling fear for when it sees this snake than for it to be like, oh no, it's just that's just the behavior that it learned when it sees long, slanky, colorful objects that look like snakes, right? To me, chimpanzees being so closely related to humans, it, you know, makes sense that they would that would be the interpretation. But people don't always agree with that, and it goes back to the idea that you can't always prove it. You can't ask the animal. So I don't think anthropomorphism is a horrible thing. Actually, I have a quote. I have it on my phone.
Oh, wonderful.
You know, mind me reading it.
Love a good quote.
About anthropomorphism.
Yeah.
And I never remember it off the top of my head. Let's see if I can find it. So this is from a researcher. His name's Franz de Waal. Very important researcher in the primatology field. He's actually considered my academic grandfather because my advisor was a PhD student under him.
Oh, dang.
So so obviously this is the perspective I come from. But I'll go ahead and read the quote because I think it's a really good one. The key point is that anthropomorphism is not always as problematic as people think. To rail against it for the sake of scientific objectivity often hides a pre-Darwinian mindset, one comfortable with the notion of humans as animals. When we are considering species like apes, which are aptly known as anthropoids, which means human-like, however, anthropomorphism is in fact a logical choice. Dubbing an ape's kiss as mouth-to-mouth contact instead of a kiss as to avoid anthropomorphism deliberately obscures the meaning of the behavior. It would be like assigning Earth's gravity to a different name than the moon's gravity just because we think the Earth, or in this case, humans, are special. So that's obviously maybe on the far end of one side of the spectrum. But I think it's a good quote showing that like anthropomorphism isn't this horrible thing, that sometimes it is simpler to say it in terms of human behavior. There's obviously a line, and you got to make sure you're not over-interpreting it as a scientist, but it's definitely something that comes up a lot.
Yeah, and it makes sense because I feel like everything in the world that we have some sort of explanation for, we understand it from the perspective of being a human. And so it almost does seem forceful to attempt to describe something or the behavior of something entirely apart from what we do experience as humans, because it feels like a path to no answer, a path to nothing.
And like I said, this perspective over here is claiming this scientific objectivity of you know, you can't really tell what the animal is, or thinking or doing or what their intent is. And certainly in your interpretations you should be cautious of those things. But I think that if you conduct a good enough study and you control for a lot of those things, I don't see a problem in interpreting certain behaviors, like we were saying with the dogs. That them being disappointed in finding people who didn't make it. I don't think that there's a problem with that. And you know, some people may come down hard on me for that, and that's totally okay. But that's the way it is, and we all have to find where we fall on that spectrum of perspectives of completely anthropomorphism and complete objectivity, where you know you're just describing what you see and not making any inferences. And so
sort of related to that, when it comes to self-awareness, I know there's certain tests like the mirror test and other things like that. Do you think, or have you seen anything or done any research on self-awareness in animals? Do you think there's certain animals that are versus aren't? Can animals be self-aware?
I love that you put this on here because I think it's a super important thing to talk about. What I will say is the common benchmark for self-awareness is the mirror self-awareness task, which, and I'll get into some potential problems with it, but essentially what it is, in case someone's never heard of it, is they'll give a mirror to an animal and allow the animal to inspect themselves or inspect the mirror at a certain point, they'll usually anesthetize the animal, put some sort of marking on it where they can't see it with their eyes. So, like, I wouldn't put a mark on my arm, but putting a mark on my forehead, you know, I can't see it with my eyes. You know, I can't move my body in a way that I would see it. But the only way I'd be able to see it was by seeing it in the mirror. And then you measure how often the animal interacts with that that mark that you put on them. So the species that have passed this, chimpanzees, sort of bonobos, which are, they didn't really do a whole big study on it, but I'll say bonobos as well. Yeah. And magpies, which are a type of corvid, which are like crows. Yeah. So very, very, a lot of. I've
heard some interesting stories about those.
They're sort of an interesting grouping of themselves. Bottlenose dolphins.
Yeah.
Elephants, Asian elephants specifically, and that was with Josh Plotnick. He's also one of Franz de Waal's students, and he's up in New York now. Anyways, he's done that, and then also, and this is the weird one. It sort of throws everything for a loop. Cleaner fish, so fish.
Interesting.
One species of fish, and so my opinion. Well, and this is
and so dogs don't pass it.
No, dogs don't pass it.
Okay.
Capuchins don't pass it.
Interesting.
I don't think orangutans or gorillas pass it.
Yeah.
And macaques, rhesus macaques, which are used commonly in research, sort of like smaller baboons.
Yeah.
They're a very common primate being researched. For a lot of reasons, their immune systems are very similar to ours, so they're involved in a lot of biomedical research. But you can also do behavioral stuff on them too. Beside the point. So only a couple species have passed it. Yeah. And there's a couple problems with the mirror test. One, which is what I talked about in the beginning of this idea of umwelt, right? Yeah. Dogs, see the world, quote unquote, see the world very differently than humans. Yeah. So putting a mark on them might not have any sort of effect. Yeah. Right? Because maybe they're such an olfaction-based species that, there was a test actually that showed dogs will sniff their urine more after something's been added to their urine than another dog's urine when that same thing was added to it.
Interesting.
And so
they are to some degree interested in themselves.
Exactly, maybe more so than someone random. Yeah. So I don't think that passing this mirror self-recognition test is a benchmark to say you're self-aware or not. Yeah. Using capuchins as an example, they've been tested on the mirror self-recognition test, and they failed. Yeah. But when someone compared their reaction to a mirror, compared to their reaction with a group member, compared to their reaction with a stranger, they looked, I think females looked at the mirror roughly 38 times more than they did with a stranger or a group member. And males did 11 times more. And so you start looking at that and you go, well, maybe they don't pass the mirror self-recognition test, but they certainly don't think it's a strange capuchin that they're looking at. Yeah. Right? And you would think that it would think it was a strange capuchin because they probably don't know what they look like because they've never seen a mirror before. So the fact that that's sort of showing the idea that maybe there is something to it and it's not just about passing this test. And then we get into the idea of fish, which is this cleaner fish, this blue streak cleaner wrasse. Blue streak cleaner wrasse. It's hard to say. Yeah. They recently passed the mirror self-recognition task, and the way they measured it was sort of a similar thing where they put a mark on the fish's throat. Yeah. And then gave the fish a mirror, and they found that after the mark was there, that they spent more time near the mirror, sort of swimming slower by the mirror, and they also do this behavior called throat rubbing, where they essentially rub their throat up on something. Yeah. And so they did that more with the mark than with a sham mark where, they do the procedure, but there's no mark. So you're controlling for that. One interpretation of that is these cleaner fish, they clean fish, so they use visuals a lot, and they're good at looking at things and looking at fish bodies. But it begs the question, if fish can do it, this tiny, tiny fish, which have shown pretty remarkable abilities for a small fish, is able to do it, but you're telling me that not all great apes can pass this test, or that capuchins can't pass this test.
Yeah.
They're also a species with a lot of evidence of cognitive abilities. So to me, my perspective is that self-awareness is best put on a spectrum.
Yeah.
As most things are.
Yeah.
Not necessarily a benchmark, right? And so I do think that animals, especially mammals, have an awareness of themselves. They have to.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that, right? Like, a monkey might not be able to pass the mirror self-recognition task, but a monkey certainly needs to know that when I'm jumping from this tree to the next, that branch I'm about to jump on can carry my weight.
It's actually true. Yeah.
And so, like, that's an example. Or that when I'm about to enter into a social group to maybe take over, I need to know that myself can take on another conspecific, another male monkey, and I need to know need to be aware of my own like abilities
and characteristics,
strengths in order to know if this is even a smart idea. And granted,
even you thought about that.
Judgments.
This is true.
You could make the argument that they still need to have an awareness of themselves. That. And so, you know, I love that the mirror self-recognition task is a popular task, but I also think that there are important things to consider with regards to that. I mean, for example, macaques also failed the mirror self-recognition task, but they can play computer games and they understand that the cursor they're moving on the computer game with a joystick is their decision. And when given two cursors, one that's moving on its own and one that's moving because of their control, they understand that cursor is theirs and not. So, I mean, to me, that shows evidence right there that they have an understanding that they're in control of something.
Did you see the video of that? I don't know what kind of monkey or ape it was, where they put Neuralink inside. So Elon, and it was playing the game on the joystick.
Yes.
Yeah, that was insane. But that's another example of like it recognizing the effect that what it does has in the world. But going back to what you were saying about, I can't remember what bird you were talking about, similar to crows. Magpie. Yeah. So a while ago, I saw this video where it was essentially talking about a group of, are crows and ravens the same thing, or are they different?
No, they're different. Yeah.
Okay.
Ravens are bigger than crows, but they are different species.
Okay, I can't remember which one it is, but they were simply talking about how, I think it was ravens, how good ravens are at understanding cause and effect and logical reasoning. And they were talking about a group of ravens somewhere in Canada who were in an area where a lot of the nuts and stuff they usually ate were super hard and they couldn't get through them. So the ravens would regularly pick up the nuts and drop them on the highway and let cars run over them. And then they would go back and eat what was inside.
Yeah.
And I feel like most people think about birds.
As being bird brain.
Yeah, exactly, bird brain. It's an actual expression.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that certain animals like that even were that intelligent or good at logic and reasoning.
Yeah. I mean, that I don't know if it's a class or an order or a family of birds where the magpies, the crows, the ravens.
Yeah.
They're called corvids is their grouping name. They are definitely a little bit of an outlier, just like I would put parrots and cockatoos for an outlier too with like language. But they use tools, and I would argue, once again, not a tool researcher, but I would argue that using a car, dropping nuts on the highway, using a car is a tool. And magpies have shown, and other corvids have shown to be using tools, which I think does sort of show that cause and effect thing, right? You need to be able to know cause and effect to use it.
Oh yeah.
Right,
to be able to connect the two things is
I mean, if I don't know how to use a screwdriver, if I don't know the effect of using a screwdriver as my cause, I mean, what's the point of using a screwdriver, right? So I do think that they have a good understanding of that. And I think that a lot of birds are smarter than people give them credit for.
Yeah.
Birds are very social, and I don't research birds, but birds are very social. They have very unique mating systems. They have amazing and beautiful communication methodologies, both in song and in like their displays. And so, they're small and their brains aren't very big, or maybe lack some of the complex areas that like our brain has, but they certainly have shown great, once again to go back to the word, intelligence, or have complex cognition or complex cognitive abilities that people would never believe that they have. And like I said, parrots, right? I mean, there's African gray parrots where people, if they haven't seen, there's this parrot that learned human language and to be able to apply sort of secondary things to like be able to say like this is I could not only sort this as a pink can, but I could also sort it as a smaller can than that. Or
some of these birds can actually see things and then recognize and use verbiage to explain it?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. It's simple.
Obviously simple, but still that's insane.
Yeah. And you can test them on it. So you can say, grab me pink can.
Yeah.
And maybe an animal understands, okay, I heard the word can.
Yeah.
Like dogs, and maybe they would grab either one of these, but they can say, grab pink can, and they grab this one instead of that one, or something like that. There's a lot of, as with all animal research, there was a lot of controversy with some of that stuff, but it was a lot of good research. Her name was, the person who did a lot of that research, her name was Irene Pepperberg.
Okay.
And she is still at Harvard, I think, and that's her stuff. But, it's a lot of cool stuff. But there are a lot of, the birds, parrots, corvids, they can do a lot of amazing things that, people don't even really understand.
That shocked me a lot.
Yeah.
So a couple times you've mentioned you're not a tool researcher. Are there people who particularly research tool use?
Yes.
Okay, so it gets that specialized.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Whenever you're an animal researcher, you usually, and this is probably true for all PhDs, you find your niche and you just slowly get more and more and more narrow. And that's ends up being what you're researching. And, so some people could be researching tool use, but some people could maybe be researching specifically a certain specific kind of tool use in a certain kind of specific species in a certain environment.
Yeah.
Like maybe not even all the species, but maybe only a certain subpopulation of this species. So it does get that specific.
And I guess that's where you make a lot of your biggest discoveries and you can write the most intricate papers. Because if you're going to study an animal and its behaviors, you need to fully understand that animal, its interactions with its environment, and all of that kind of stuff in order to make any hard and fast conclusion.
Yeah. A lot of people say, a lot of people wonder, is it a bad thing that people get so specialized in their little niche of research? And I'd actually say it's a great thing because it gives diversity to science. And, if we were all generalists, we wouldn't learn anything because, and this is the classic nomenclature that people say all the time, right? You don't find water in a well by going wider, you find water in a well by going deeper. And so that's how you find things out, is becoming so specialized. So I think it's actually a good thing. But it does get you get very, very specific in your research. Like your master's thesis, your dissertation becomes such a teeny tiny part of the broader scale of research, but you are the expert in that teeny tiny part.
Is there any field of research or study that you feel like you've kind of decided you want to be your path or where you want to?
Master's, and what I did for that was I studied pro-social behavior and the influence of oxytocin, which is a hormone, on pro-social behavior, which is just any behavior that positively affects another individual. Me, if I were to brought you a burger, or you giving me the right? That'd be a pro-social behavior. You're giving food. So donation, that sort of stuff. And I was looking at specifically how the hormone oxytocin affects Capuchin monkey pro-social behavior in the setting of a large social group.
Interesting.
It's very, very specific.
So is oxytocin common in their natural diet, or why oxytocin in particular?
So oxytocin is a neuropeptide hormone. It's evolutionary ancient. It's been tracked all the way through vertebrates, naturally occurring in all vertebrates, and even in some invertebrates too. There's evidence of a oxytocin analog. And it's a very controversial hormone. Originally, it was thought to be this love hormone, right?
I've heard that.
That causes you to cuddle and love.
It's supposed to be like chocolate and other stuff like that.
And you fall in love better when you inhale it. And the thing is, though, we've now found out that's not really the case. It's certainly involved in those sorts of behaviors. At least it elevates after those certain behaviors. So we know that after physical touch, after grooming in primates, after pair bonding in voles, after orgasm for humans, that oxytocin all elevates following these sort of social relationship building or cohesive events. But people really wanted to cash in on the idea that oxytocin made people fall in love.
Yeah.
Made people nicer or better at being social.
Yeah.
But
so it can work one of both ways, you're saying, is like, we understand that it works that when you are with someone that you love, oxytocin is released, which gives you a particular feeling. Yeah. And so were you guys testing whether or not introducing certain things that would release oxytocin would then work the other way and encourage pro-social behavior?
Yeah, so so sort of two perspectives, right? Which is and they're both important in understanding oxytocin's like role. Yeah. Which is one, I can measure oxytocin after things happen. Yeah. And that shows me that how the oxytocin system reacts to behaviors. Yeah. But then the other side, which is sort of what I was looking at, which is how does oxytocin cause behavior? Yeah. So it's the flip side, the reverse. Does the arrow go backwards? Yeah. And a lot of people thought for a while that it did. Some people still do. It's still a hot debate in the field. Yeah. But it was early on, people thought it did. And people thought that it was involved in all these behaviors. So therefore, if I can give oxytocin, I can make people be nicer, fall in love, be more social. That
would be fantastic.
Right, it would be amazing.
Yeah, ideal.
And there was a lot of studies that showed those positive effects. But as decades and decades of research have shown us, that may not actually be the case, and that the effects of oxytocin are probably
maybe a one-way channel.
It could be a one-way channel, or if it is a two-way channel, maybe it's very specific. Yeah. Someone in my lab, or she's actually a professor now at Emory, and she uses the example of oxytocin in sex, right? Oxytocin increases following orgasm in humans. Yeah. So it actually doesn't really make a whole lot of sense that it would then have a causal arrow in the reverse direction, right? Because you just finished this this bonding experience of sex, and you've finished, you've had an orgasm, right? Yeah. And oxytocin now elevates. It really wouldn't make sense that
if it went back the other way,
because it's sort of the end, right? And so that's just sort of one example.
Yeah, like it's the result of a behavior. That doesn't mean that it would.
Yeah, and there are studies that do show it changes behavior. So maybe there is either another confounding explanation that we are unaware of. Or maybe it's interacting with some other system in our bodies, or it could be a number of different things. But it's what I found. Well, actually, I won't say what I found because the paper hasn't come out yet. But when it does come out, you can check my paper out to see what we found. Yeah. But it does seem that in both humans and a lot of animals, that the causal effects of oxytocin on behavior are much more nuanced, if even present. So.
Okay. That makes sense. So in the world of like animal research, animal psychology, what percentage of it would you say is studying animals' behavior in their natural environment versus their interaction with humans? Like, because I feel like in the world we live in today, there's more and more interactions with animals we wouldn't typically be used to or wouldn't typically be in the same environment as us. And I guess that's a much harder thing to sort of study as well. Yeah. Given those animals, but.
So there is actually some good research, and I'm no expert on it, that looks at interspecies relationships. So that's just between species. So the most common one we're all familiar with are dogs and humans. Yeah. Is the most common interspecies relationship, and there's a lot of research on that. There'll be a lot of studies that see if a dog will cooperate with their owner. Or, in some task, or if their dog will do things to interact with their human, or will they wait, and all that kind of stuff. With regards to other animals that are not domesticated, definitely research is fewer and like far between. Yeah. Just because it's not as necessarily as natural, but you bring up a good point, which is that as humans are continuing to grow and inhabit this planet, we are expanding into ecosystems of animals, and therefore they're sort of forced to have interactions with us. Yeah. And I do definitely think it's going to be a future avenue of research that will need to be touched on. Yeah. And it's currently understudied except for like in dogs and maybe even in cats or other domesticated like farm animals even. Mm-hmm. But there's certainly very little of it in like primates, for example. Or other wild animals. We always joke about, we always say that if you ever wanted to get a job as a researcher somewhere, the best thing to do would be to say you're going to study squirrels. Because squirrels are everywhere, and they are just nobody studies squirrels. Nobody studies these.
They literally are everywhere. Like I was in Kenya last year, and I was seeing squirrels. I was like, they look the exact same as the squirrils in Georgia on this side of the planet. It doesn't make any sense.
They're everywhere, and they interact with humans all the time. So it'd be really interesting. I mean, maybe someone's looking at it. Maybe I'm revealing what somebody's researching or something.
Giving away their secret.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know anybody that's doing it, and it's a very interesting avenue of research because they live lives intertwined with us, but
entirely intertwined.
Animals. And so I think that's super interesting.
Yeah, one thing that kind of got me interested in like human-animal interactions, I was reading about P22, and I had never really heard of P22.
Yeah.
It's the panther or mountain lion cougar, any of that.
Yeah.
That lived in Los Angeles County from 2012 to 2022.
Yeah.
The only one that made it across the highway and lived in that environment, and it was there for a decade.
Yeah.
And I remember hearing about one incident in 2014, I believe. A koala disappeared from the Los Angeles Zoo, and they went back and looked at the videotape, and they saw a video of P22 jumping 9 feet over the fence, grabbing the koala and leaving.
Yeah.
And when the media asked the zoo and like the wildlife people out there about it, they were like, "That's natural predatory behavior. We have the panther collared and GPS. It shouldn't be a threat to the people in the area." Yeah. And so there's videos of this cougar mountain lion walking around in front of people's ring doorbells. And they were just telling everyone, it's not a threat to you.
Yeah.
So stuff like that where it's a little mountain lion in a suburban area, and they're saying, it's not a threat to you, blah, blah, blah. It's not going to...
I don't know that it wouldn't be a threat. I don't know that I would trust what they were saying on that.
Yeah, but then on the other side, for a decade, it was never a threat to anyone.
Right, yeah. I mean, so maybe I would have been wrong in that case. I probably would have been on the side of caution. If anyone's seen a mountain lion up close, especially a male mountain lion, they are not an animal I would want to mess with.
Yeah.
I think there's a funny quote where it was, I don't know who said it or if it was just a tweet or something, and it's like, oh, if you see a mountain lion, it's okay. It's not hunting you because you see it.
Yeah.
So it's good
Makes
news.
sense.
It's good news if you see a mountain lion because it's not hunting, because if you don't see it, then that's the problem. But yeah, it's just super interesting. I do think that is a very rare case, but I think that P22 is an example of things that are to come.
Yeah.
As we continue to fragment landscapes and ecosystems and continue to build roads over things, that there are going to be these animals and potentially very large predatory animals. We don't have very many of those in the United States, but all across the world, where we're going to start seeing more human-animal interactions. And I do think that it's something that's worth researching and certainly is not researched enough.
Yeah.
And so... yeah, I think it's super interesting, but I think that P22 is a testament to that interaction, and it honestly could even offer as a warning sign to say, like, hey, like, we're intruding on these animals' environments. And you see that all across the world.
Yeah, and it's actually already gone ahead and instituted some change just because of how popular P22 got.
Yeah.
So there's a famous picture of this mountain lion in front of the Hollywood sign and stuff, so it became like local celebrity. Everyone was paying attention. In fact, it was the only one that was able to make it inside this loop of highway.
Yeah.
And since then, they've started building wildlife bridges so that animals can safely go in and out of the highway.
Yeah.
Because essentially, this mountain lion was stuck inside this loop.
Yeah.
You know, and didn't have access to any mating opportunities, none of that. Because for 10 years...
I'm sure it had plenty of food.
Oh yeah, plenty of food. But it cannot freely move in and out of this environment. And so... in terms of like actually spreading awareness for creating safe passage for wildlife as we continue to intrude in the areas.
Yeah.
That was big.
It's like, and we call I call them like animal ambassadors. I mean, P22 is a great animal ambassador. I wish P22 had a better name.
Yeah, I know. They actually had a number of polls in the newspaper and stuff, and it was suggesting names, and everyone just kept voting. Let's just keep it P22.
Oh, well, okay. Well, if that's what they wanted, then that's what they got. But, yeah, I think that P22 is a great animal ambassador for showing how urbanization of ecosystems it can be detrimental. I mean, yes, P22 went 10 years without attacking a person.
Yeah.
Poor koala bear from the LA Zoo. But it could have gone easily the other way around, and it could have ended up in P22 having to be killed even.
That was actually how P22 was. No, I will say died in 2022, December 2022, because it killed a Chihuahua that was being walked by someone. And they've been tracking this mountain lion for 10 years, and they were like, this is abnormal behavior.
Yeah.
So let's tranquilize him, bring him in and see if there's anything going on, if there's any health issue, because we haven't seen this behavior out of him. They tranquilized him, and then he ran into the street and got hit by a car, unfortunately. But that was one of those situations where they noticed something abnormal, and they were like, okay, maybe we should check this out.
Too, because, and then just a little aside, when you tranquilize an animal, they don't immediately go to sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so you have to you run the risk, right? Like, they usually either get mad or they run away. Usually they run away because they're scared. It's like, what the heck is this?
Yeah, which makes sense.
Yeah, it's really sad.
So
I actually didn't know that part.
Yeah, and that was super sad. Literally after 10 years. Yeah. Completely fine, uninterrupted.
All because of a chihuahua.
Yeah, all because of a chihuahua, exactly. That was kind of like what you were saying earlier, how you can kind of tell if animals are in stressful or unnatural situations if they start doing things they wouldn't typically do. Yeah. Like they'd been observing this animal for a long time, like he's never attacked a dog. Now he's doing that. And they actually later found that he has suffering from like kidney failure and did have some health issues. So it was probably going to pass away soon anyway. But that was like one of those markers they were able to use to tell that something was wrong. Yeah. So the behavior changed.
I mean, and I'm not familiar, like, well-versed on that situation specifically, but yeah, certainly that's a great example of us as animal researchers, and I'm sure they have a lot of animal research people there. Monitoring an animal's behavior is a very important part of the job, and you can tell a lot from behavior. Yeah. There are some things you can't tell, and some things that go under the radar that you would never know, but that's what sometimes it makes our job, it's what makes our job interesting and intriguing and fun, but also makes it challenging too, and be difficult to try and, like I said, see the world from that animal's perspective and try and understand why this animal is doing it when they can't talk to me and they can't tell me what they're doing or why they're doing it. So, yeah.
So, as animal psychology, animal research as a field, what does that look like in terms of is just full-time research in like a zoo or that type of environment typically the career goal for that and where he will end up, or is there a little more versatility in what you can do given that particular knowledge or skill set?
Yeah, so, and I'll speak more from my personal experience. Yeah. And I'll be the first one to say this, and I have no shame in it. I'm 3 years into my PhD, and I don't know what I want to do afterwards. Yeah. But typically, people that are in my field will do a number of different things. One, they could go to a zoo or an aquarium, maybe lead a research team there, or be on management staff there, or even become like a keeper or a trainer of some kind. Usually, once you get your PhD, that's not as common to go to be one of those roles. Yeah. Like more on the research side. Yeah. Of things. Just because you just spent the last half a decade of your life doing it.
Yeah, which makes sense.
But that's only one route. So another route is the classic academia route where
you're just writing, publishing.
Yeah, writing, publishing, doing your own research. Usually you go from grad school to a postdoc. You do a postdoc for a couple of years. After the postdoc's done, hopefully you move to another university and you become an assistant professor, and then hopefully you're good enough there. You get a lot of research done there. Then you get tenure, and then all of a sudden you have your own lab, and then now you have students.
And it's just a cycle.
It's just a cycle, and it's all about publishing papers and doing research and getting funding and from like outside sources like the National Institute of Health or the National Science Foundation, like that kind of stuff. So that's another route, and so I call that sort of the academia, like principal investigator route, which is just someone who like has a lab and runs it and has grad students and then funds it and does research. And then there's also the complete other way, which is we usually call it going into the industry, which is where you get your PhD and you ultimately say it was fun working with animals. But there's only so much that I can do with animals. I'm actually going to leave the animal field and go and do research for a company.
So research for a company, what would that look like?
So like a common one is UX design, right?
Okay.
There's a lot of research that goes into
so just say you're still doing research, just not related to animals at all.
Yeah, and a lot of the stuff you learn as a PhD is like stats. Like you learn how to do a lot of stats. How to control experiments and run good science. Yeah. If you pulled any Joe Schmo off the street and was like, hey, conduct a well-controlled experiment, I guarantee you, most people probably wouldn't do a good job, and they'd forget to control for this or that. Whereas a PhD student, like, that's what they've done for the past 5-6 years of their life.
Exactly. It's just second nature at that point.
Yeah, and so whether it's going to a big company that needs research for their consumers or maybe their business design or the way their website looks, or whether it's an actual company that what they do is conduct research on people and try and see how people make decisions. There's lots of different things. Like I know one of my previous lab members now works at Audible. So, and helps with the algorithm of
actually started using Audible this week.
Oh, really? Yeah. Plug for Audible.
Shout out Audible.
Shout out Audible. And she works on the algorithm suggesting new books based on what you've read.
Yeah.
And so, like, she's good at doing that research and finding out, if Jim likes this book, what other books does he like reading?
Actually,
and how can I...
Yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense. I had never really connected or made that connection, but it is true that like data literacy and the ability to look at a large data set and infer meaning or conclusions from it isn't a very common thing.
No.
You can see that just by the number of studies that are put out there on social media that will be obviously super, like, what's the word? Just leading in one direction or another and are very manipulative in the way that they describe the research. And if you're someone who does research or you look at data and infer results from it, often you can look at a study that's clearly leaning in one direction or has the hypothesis or methods that sway it in one direction or another, and you can be like, this study can't be taken seriously. Whereas for most people who have no experience in that, they can easily be manipulated by a study that was made with a particular conclusion in mind.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're and that's so common too, and I mean, and especially in a day and age, and not to make this political, and I won't for sure, but there's lots of misinformation out there.
Oh yeah, tons.
And there's been misinformation from, this is not a new thing. I mean, advertisements for the past 2 decades plus have been giving us misinformation.
Yeah.
Like, 4 out of 5 dentists recommend this toothpaste, right? It's like, okay, and we tested 5 dentists, 4 of which we've paid.
And we gave them 2 options. And they chose this one over the other one. Yeah.
And one of them was from the dollar store and one of them was our brand.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of bias in stuff like that, and even in research. And so there is a lot of skill that you learn, and it's something that I'm definitely not perfect at.
Yeah.
But it's something as a PhD student that you learn to read studies.
Yeah.
And you read what they have as results, and you then read their discussion, which is their interpretation of their results, and there's a little bit more flair or opinion in discussions. And as they should be, it makes the paper more entertaining. It'd be really boring if I just told you what I found and I didn't interpret it at all. But you get good at reading those and picking apart things and being like, well, is that actually, is that really the case? Or did you forget to control for this or control for this? And I always laugh. Whenever me and my girlfriend have a conversation, I'm known for taking devil's advocate. And I think it's just because it's how I'm wired, because I always am suspicious of something when I see it.
Yeah.
Like, unless I know for it to be fact, or like I see the actual data, I'm always like, well, it could be this, or this, or this. And I think that's what a PhD does too.
Yeah.
Which is a good thing. I think that more people should be like that. Maybe not as far on the spectrum as I am, but it makes PhD people are really good at being suspicious of things.
Yeah. And like I saw that one of the largest demographic of people that were skeptical or waited before even getting the COVID vaccine were PhDs, which a lot of people wouldn't expect, but it's just because you see data coming out and you're able, I mean, just through science in general, science is skepticism and attempting to draw a conclusion from something that seems inconclusive, you know?
Yeah.
And that often takes a lot more than a couple months or looking at a study once. And so I think that skill is kind of lost just because of the overflow of information we have every day.
Absolutely.
You're getting so much information just siphoned into you from social media and news, all of that, that you kind of have to draw a conclusion quickly if you want to get through it all. But I do think there's so much value in being able to kind of slow down and think about things critically and be a little skeptical and look for an explanation rather than a description, you know?
I think the world could use a little more skepticism.
I agree entirely.
The thing is, though, maybe it's not as common because it is difficult too. I mean, it's not an easy thing to you know, it's easier to just take what the billboard tells you and say, okay, that's, you know, that's what I'm believing.
Yeah.
But it's much harder to try and look at the data, especially data and stats can get really complicated.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, I'm not even great at it, and that's what I do. And I think that's where science can do a better job. In that portraying our findings in a way that other people can understand it is important in a way that's not biased.
I agree. Yeah.
I think that science could do a better job. And there are some scientists that are really great at it. And then there's also some scientists that perceivably, or they on the surface they look really good at it, but then they also have biased intentions. And so you got to find that balance of being better at presenting to the public so that they can understand, but also being unbiased in the way you do it so that they can make their own interpretations.
Yeah, I agree, because I feel like within the science and even like even deeper in the academic science community, there's so much value on people that know the jargon and have spent decades researching a very particular specialized topic that they want to convince people is good for society or needs funding because it'll be a great help to people's everyday life. But I think that the thing that's even more valuable is the ability to communicate that. So let's say you study something that you understand fully for a number of years, decades, you've put all these papers out about it, and you need funding in order to actually implement this idea that you've been researching, but you're unable to communicate that to the people. You're not going anywhere.
And not going anywhere at all.
And I think
wheels are just spinning and it doesn't matter because no one's actually going to do anything with that.
Exactly. And so I think science communication, in particular in like soft skills in the science and research community, is something that needs to be encouraged so much, because I think there's sort of like a divide right now between like science and people who do science and then everyone else. And it seems like there needs to be more people that can kind of step in the middle of that and really spend a lot of time learning how to communicate those things that they've been researched or things that are maybe even super complex topics within science to people who probably don't understand it all. You know? I think the kind of loop you were talking about regarding academia is one of the things that is unfortunately a little detrimental in that is that if you, let's say you're a PhD student and you do this and you go into academia where you're with animal researchers, then you come back and you're teaching students that are animal researchers, your whole life is kind of centered around people who understand this world of animal research that you live in. And I don't know how conducive that is to translating what you're learning to people who are not in that world at all. You know?
I agree. And that's actually when you reached out to me and asked if I wanted to do this, like I thought it's a great opportunity. Something that we in my lab, and I think this is a direct consequence, and not in a bad way, like a direct result of my advisor, Dr. Sarah Brosnan at Georgia State. She is great at communicating with the public, and I think that she prioritizes that and makes sure that she teaches us how to do that as animal researchers. But that's not the case everywhere. It's certainly not the case, and it might even be the minority of cases where people are actually learn or emphasize the need to do that. So when you offer this opportunity, I was like, I would love to do that because one, I'd love to talk about research and science, and specifically with animals, just because that's what I do and I'm passionate about it and I find it interesting. But also even things like the captivity, and I think too often times we always hear the sad animal that's dying in captivity or that's being tortured or it's anxious, and we never really see the other side of things, which is like that there are people that are working, and I promise you they're not paid a whole lot of money to work.
I didn't even, that was honestly the most compelling thing for me is the fact that they don't get paid very much.
These people are not going every day to clock in and torturing animals. They love these animals as much as their own pets, as much as some of their own family. And they want these animals to be healthy and live good, fulfilling lives as well. And certainly, there are bad apples. There are bad apples in every field. And there are certain people that maybe do it for the wrong reasons. But I'd say the vast majority of people are certainly doing it for the right reasons. And so I just thought it was a good way. I mean, podcasts is a great way, or it's a great way for people to learn that kind of stuff. And hopefully that, like what I've said and some of the things highlights that. And ultimately, it's been huge. Like you were saying, I want also people to make their own conclusions too. And so I think that science does need to do a better job, and I think they need to do a better job of presenting things in a way that allows people to form their own opinion. And that's what I always am doing. I try to do a good job at least of saying, like, this is my opinion. And,
absolutely, because if you don't say that it's your opinion, then you're going against the rule we just define science by, which is skepticism and looking at information and then driving a conclusion from that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So, and my ultimate take, and I hope that people take this away, is that all things with animals, whether it's self-recognition, whether it's quote-unquote intelligence or these cognitive abilities, everything is on a spectrum, and it's not black and white, and that there are certain things that some animals can do and some animals can't, and animals quote-unquote see the world in such a very different way from humans that it makes it so hard for us to even comprehend their perception of the world and why they're doing the things that they're doing. But just taking that and knowing that when you get something from animals, that everything's on a spectrum and that you just need to take everything as not black and white and see it for what it is and what the data tells you, and definitely make interpretations, but definitely don't oversell yourself, but also don't undersell yourself so that you're not, being so objective that it's boring, right?
Yeah.
So, I think that animal research offers a great opportunity, and you can extend that to so many different fields.
Yeah.
And
I love that. You said you're working on a publication.
Yes.
Can you say where that will be, or do you have any idea of what that process will look like?
It will be my first authored paper.
Okay.
So I have another publication that I was a second author on. Actually did as an undergrad.
Yeah.
It was on Venus flytraps, believe it or not. Which is sort of an interesting plant species. It's the most animal-like of plant species.
Yeah.
But I won't get too much into that. I do have a study coming out on capuchins. It has not been accepted into a journal yet, but we're still working on just the final revisions before we submit it to a journal, and will hopefully be accepted in an animal behavior journal or an animal cognition journal.
Yeah.
And it was specifically looking at how capuchin monkeys decide between an option that is always there and an option that disappears.
Okay.
So it's called the...
It's kind of like an object permanence type.
A little bit, yeah. So it's called the... some people call it, in psychology, they call it the ephemeral choice task, because one option is ephemeral and it disappears, and one option is permanent. In biology, it's called the market task, or the biological market task. Basically, what it represents is how does an animal decide between does it learn to prioritize an item that can disappear or an item that stays there? And so if you're a capuchin monkey, for example, and you're foraging in the woods, do you go for the berry that will be there no matter what, or do you go for the insect that will fly away if you don't go for it first? Right? And so if you were logical in your selection of your items, you would choose the insect first, followed by the berry.
Yeah, exactly.
We find that animals aren't so great at that. And so what that study was looking at some of the effects or some of the things that might change the way they make that decision. And specifically, it's on a computer-based task. So our capuchins are trained to complete tasks and sort of games on computers.
And that's insane.
It's very cool.
So
that should be coming out hopefully this year. I've been working on it for a really long time. And it's actually in a comparison to another study that did a very similar thing with those cleaner fish that I talked about. So they're actually really good at that choice.
Interesting.
So, and the reason they are is they actually, that choice was based off their ecology. So they inhabit these reefs, and they get two different types of fish. They get resident fish that will always stick around and wait, and then they get visitor fish that are just passing through, sort of fish. And those fish will move on if they don't get cleaned first. And so that's the idea that that in the wild they're actually really good at cleaning those visitor fish first and making the residents wait.
Because they understand that they're transient, they're going to keep on going.
That's why the fish are actually really good at that choice. But so it'll be
that is insane.
Study.
Yeah.
I'm excited to get it out there.
Dang. Are there any resources or anything you want to share with people before we finish up?
No, I just think that just circling back to the animals in captivity thing, especially like you were saying with the Georgia Aquarium, that the AZA website, I think it's aza.org, has a list of all the facilities in America.
Okay.
That are accredited by that have received accreditation.
Yeah.
So I would encourage people that maybe before you go to a facility, seeing if the facility is accredited by the AZA.
Mm-hmm.
Because ultimately what happens, and like you said with Tiger King, like lots of people go to Tiger King.
Yeah.
If lots of people go to this place and they buy tickets and they pay money, you know, those places are going to continue to exist. And so if you really want to do a good job and you want to watch out for animals in captivity and under human care, going to organizations that have these accreditations and making sure that when you're there, you're looking at the welfare of the animals and making your own conclusions and saying, you know, does this environment look like it mimics what would be true if they were in their natural environment?
Yeah.
Obviously with some restrictions. And making those conclusions for yourself, and then and really helping to provide funding or like even donations to those places, and maybe staying away from the ones that don't receive those accreditations or maybe aren't as great. I think that would be my only plug, and everyone just continue to be skeptical.
Yeah.
And just every part of your life, and always question science, and don't take whatever the billboard says, and yeah. So those are just sort of my main takeaways. And then the last one, which is just remember that when you're thinking about animals, they don't see the same world that we see.
Yeah.
And that lots of things are just beyond our comprehension, that animals are amazing and so complex, even to the simplest snail, right?
Yeah.
Barely has a brain at all. Right?
Yeah.
There's still these amazing
Still
creatures
special.
that do
in their own
amazing
way.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're all special in their own way. So yeah, that would be the last thing. I don't really have like a plug organization or anything.
Nah, you're good.
But
well,
yeah.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah, it was a great conversation.
Yeah, I learned a lot.
Yeah.
I will be going to the aquarium.
Yes.
That's my decision. You can make your own decisions. I will be going.
Yeah.
A lot. Thank you so much for watching the video. Make sure to subscribe, hit the like button, and you can press the notification bell if you would like to be notified every time we post. Also, you can leave a comment on what you thought about this video or stuff you'd like to see in future videos or conversations.